Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dee Reinhardt with Illinois WorkNet. I am happy to welcome you to our webinar on workplace skills, letting everybody know about what the skills are that employers want them to have. And today we're going to be talking about 3 of our skills on our skills chart here. We did have a webinar just last week on the first 3 items, and we have a webinar next week on the other 3 items. So let's roll along. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Catherine Perfetti. She is a PhD in human service leadership. She's been in human service field for 30 years. She used to work with as a counselor and a director of career services at McHenry County College, and she worked with Illinois WorkNet Center in Woodstock during that time period. She currently has an advisory group that is her own private practice located in Algonquin, and she provides personal and organizational development services. So thank you, Catherine, for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Dee. It's a privilege to be working with everybody.
Great. All right. So today we're going to be talking about independence and initiative, leadership and teamwork, and positive attitude. So let's get rolling with our first area of information, and that is independence and initiative. And as you can see on the slide, the link is right there at the top of the screen, and Chelsea's going to be adding some links to the chat pod as well. But if you do download the handouts, all of the links will be live in the presentation itself. So let's start out with independence. And as we are looking at what independence actually means, it's one of the first skills that an employer will look for in you as a new employee. They didn't hire you to be next to you every hour of the day. In other words, they don't want to babysit you. They want to be able to assign you duties or tasks and know that you'll be able to complete them to help them achieve their daily or weekly goals. So let's talk, I forgot to advance the slide, I'm sorry. Let's talk about what some of these terms mean. Planning. We want to approach work in a methodical manner. We want to set short-term and long-term goals and then achieve those goals. We want to be able to plan and schedule tasks so that your work is completed on time, and you want to keep track of details to ensure that you're doing that work accurately and completely. And we have a link that Chelsea just added to the pod about where some of the information for the definition of these terms comes from. Also, when you prioritize, you want to make sure that you're being able to get the most important tasks done at their most effective time. You want to be able to react efficiently according to the task's urgency. And you want to make sure that you find new ways to organize your work area and be able to accomplish your work more efficiently. You want to be able to allocate resources appropriately by estimating the resources needed for a project and then making sure that everything is there. Just for example, you can't build a house without the lumber there at the right time and in the right quantity. You also want to make sure that you're keeping all the parties informed of the progress and timelines. You also want to anticipate obstacles and make sure that you can have a plan A or a plan B for any contingency that might want to come up. And you want to take the necessary corrective action when projects go off track. So let's start with our first poll question. And I want to have you read this. It's a little bit of reading there, but what you do is you have just started working at a toy store for the holiday season. You've been there since 9 o'clock. Your boss asks you to do some tasks and then some other tasks after lunch. Well, you finished your morning tasks, so what do? And you can finish reading there and then give us an answer. there is a little bit of reading there. I apologize for that, but you can go back and read it if you need to correct your answer. How are they doing on those answers there, Catherine?
100%. Clean up the store and go to lunch at the right time.
Well, I also like that answer, start on the afternoon project. If they've got a little bit of time, they could possibly get started. So it's not a wrong answer. All right, so let's hide this poll question and let's move on to the next slide, which is about independence as well. What you want to be able to do is fulfill your obligations, and you want to behave consistently and predictably. You want to make sure that you're responsible and dependable in fulfilling those obligations, and you want to be able to follow through on any commitments to meet deadlines. You want to show up on time. It's always important that you show up on time, whether you are punching a clock or showing up for an appointment. And as you attend to details, you want to make sure that you are ensuring that all details have been considered. Make sure that you notice errors or inconsistencies that may have been missed, and make sure that you take prompt and thorough action to correct any errors. And you also want to be able to comply with policy. You want to follow written and verbal directions. Make sure that you know what the policies and procedures are and the rules for your organization. Now, all of these elements become part of the bigger picture. If a salesperson is expected to call on a client, that person should show up when scheduled to be mindful of the client's time. Find out what items are needed to complete an order. The order must be placed properly with attention to details, making sure that you're ordering the right size, quantity, and then follow up to ensure that the delivery will be on time. All of these items need to comply with policies and procedures of the company. Now, when you're working independently, there's a lot of leeway for you to be able to go and do what it is that you need to be able to go and do. One of the things that we have on ONET Online and also on Illinois WorkNet on our wages, career wages and trends area is to check to see what the duties are that are involved with a different job and find out whether or not a job would require some independence or not. When somebody cannot independently fulfill their job duties, it ends up costing the company time, and time is money. So in summary, independence is being able to complete your duties without always having a supervisor planning your next moves. So let's take a look at a poll question here. Which of these jobs require a high degree of independence? Somebody answered one of them. Some of these are a little bit more independent than others. I can see a couple of them that are less independent. All right, let's hide that poll. Go back to our presentation, and we'll move forward with our slide. And now we want to talk about initiative. How well do you understand the needs of your company and your boss? Can you outline what is important to them? It's not always about you. Sometimes it's about the company. Initiative is about taking steps to make your company better, not about wasting time tackling unimportant matters. To make the distinction, try determining the impact a certain action would make on team performance, the company's bottom line, or the company's long-term prosperity. So we have a link to an article that Chelsea just put in there where we can get some of this information. When you're persistent, it means that you have an energy and a drive to make sure that you accomplish. You expend extra effort to accomplish tasks even when conditions are difficult or deadlines are tight. I know that the ladies at Illinois WorkNet and I work hard to meet some deadlines sometimes, so it's always happening whether we have interruptions or obstacles or setbacks. When you take initiative, you go beyond the routine demands of the job. You seek out new work challenges and increase the variety and scope of your job. You seek opportunities to influence events and originate action, and you assist others who have less experience or heavy workloads. You find tasks to perform on your own. You make suggestions for improvement. You exhibit interest in making the organization more effective and productive, and you maintain work standards in the midst of change. When you set challenging goals, it means that you are setting challenging, but they have to be realistic work goals. You want to exert effort toward making mastery of those tasks and goals, and you want to bring issues to closure by making sure that you have a full resolution achieved. Initiative also means being able to work independently. Now, it kind of goes along with the independence, but it means that you can develop your own way of doing things, performing tasks with minimal direction. You also want to have achievement motivation, where you're intrinsically driven to succeed and excel. You strive to exceed standards and expectations, and you exhibit confidence in capabilities and expectation to succeed in future activities. If you are taking the initiative, in most cases, you are being proactive rather than being reactive, where you react to a situation. You take the bull by the horns instead of grabbing onto the tail and going for that wild ride as he's bucking and rearing. Just as in our example, if you are faced with a situation at your job, will you take the first steps to try to solve a problem? Do you make suggestions to your supervisor, or do you create a process or procedures to make it easier for the next person? Initiative is being able to plan and organize your next steps in a process to ensure your job is complete. So let's take a look at our poll question. And what this says here is you are working as a non-destructive test on a new music player, and you were expecting your boss to come in and help you set up the tester since you don't have a lot of experience with it. You get a call from your boss saying that he won't be in the office today. How can you show your independence and initiative skills? How are they doing on this answer here, Catherine?
Oh, well, very good. To try to find the instructions is a great idea. But nobody's indicated seeing if there's a coworker that might be able to help them. I think I would do both.
Mm-hmm. There's really only one bad answer, and I think we have a very intelligent audience who did not pick.
Yeah.
What's that song? Was it by Michael Jackson? One bad apple? No.
Mm.
Oh, please don't let me sing right. All right, we're going to hide this poll. And we're going to move on to the next. Oh, thank you, Patricia. It was the Osmonds. Yes, yes. All right, so the things we want to remember is independence is being able to complete your duties without always having a supervisor planning your next moves. An initiative is being able to plan and organize your next steps in a process to ensure your job is complete. Next, we're going to talk about teamwork and leadership. And the link for the teamwork and leadership area is on the top of the slide. And it is also going to jump into the chat pod right now. Thank you, Chelsea. So I love this quote. Lead me, follow me, or get out of my way. That is just perfect for leadership and teamwork. If you're not going to be part of the solution, you are part of the problem. And it's all that way that it is. So leadership and teamwork work hand in hand together. So what we want to do now is we want to talk a little bit, oh my goodness, listen to me blabber. Talk a little bit about leadership and interpersonal skills. So what are interpersonal skills? Basically, it's how you act, interact, or react to those around you. The golden rule comes to mind here to me, that you want to treat others the way you want to be treated. So, Kathy, what do you think about interpersonal skills?
They are key to teamwork and being able to communicate effectively. So I know that we're going to be covering that in a little bit, but they're key.
All right.
Work together.
Now our first one is to demonstrate sensitivity and empathy. And you want to show sincere interest in others and their concerns and demonstrate sensitivity to the needs and feelings of others. You want to help others resolve sensitive interpersonal problems as appropriate. And you want to look for ways to help people and you want to pitch in to be able to help others. At its core, empathy is the oil that keeps relationships running smoothly. It means to put yourself in the other person's shoes or seeing things through someone else's eyes. Do you have a story that you can add there?
You're talking to me?
Yes.
Correct? Okay, yes.
Yes.
So the thing with empathy and sensitivity is that people have personalities. I'm very big advocate of the Myers-Briggs personality inventory. And knowing whether you are the more sensitive type of personality where empathy comes naturally, or that you are another type, that's the T, which isn't tapped into that as well. So you really need to know where you stand with that, because some are maybe too empathetic to have just right empathy, and others may not understand empathy at all, and they just can't communicate appropriately.
So it's always important to know the personalities of the people that you're working with.
Yes, and to really embrace your own personality, knowing how you communicate and how you best receive communication so that you can articulate what your needs are. It moves the teamwork along faster when people are communicating at a much higher level.
Right. Right. And being able to demonstrate that through insight into other behaviors by interpreting the verbal and nonverbal behavior of others. It helps you show insight into actions and motives of others and recognize when relationships with others are strained. So just being aware of how things are going. And you want to maintain open relationships. You want to have open lines of communication. It doesn't help to stew over something that somebody said or did without saying something to them. And you want to encourage them to approach those other people with their problems and your successes. So not always just bad stuff. You want to establish a high degree of trust and credibility with others. Now let's talk about this seeking feedback. A very strong personality can seek feedback and take it and respond. But I know, as strong of a personality as I have, if somebody gives me some feedback, sometimes I bristle. And It doesn't always work out the best. But if you are able to absorb the feedback and understand that it's to improve your performance or what you're doing for the company, then you might be able to find new ways to perfect your behavior or performance. It can be and should be positive, which means it gives you a way to go back and change things, not just say, oh, that's wrong. So you want to make sure that if you're giving somebody feedback, that you get your timing right. You want to make sure that you're ready and willing to hear the opinions of others. And when you seek feedback from the right sources, so it's not always your peer that's going to give you the right feedback. It might need to be your boss. And design the way that you get the feedback. Instead of just saying, what do you think, that might lead to some vague feedback, you want to tell somebody what your goal is, and did you achieve that outcome? What impact do you want to have on the viewer or the reader? And do you want big details or, minute details, or do you want big picture feedback? And then you need to acknowledge that you're getting the feedback and deal with your emotions, because sometimes you went off track with your project, and you need to be able to deal with the emotions that you're going to have when you hear that bad news. And then you need to sort through the feedback that you get for useful items, hoping that your ego doesn't get bruised. And if you need to go back and do the rebuttal sort of thing, that you're not doing it totally defensive, that you're being able to massage your ego and come back and say, okay, I need this. Constructive commentary is an essential part of a creative success. And if you're interested in improving your work, you need to seek the feedback regularly. But it doesn't have to decimate your work or your creative dreams. Do it right, and feedback can build, not destroy, your dreams. Let's talk about respecting diversity. Catherine, would you like to add a couple of things here?
Diversity is understanding and being sensitive to the nuances of each person's cultural family upbringing. And they may do things that seem very odd to you when really it's very natural for them. So that's what, when we talk about being culturally sensitive, that's what we're talking about.
All right, great. Let's move on to the next slide and talk about delegating. Delegating is really tough. Sometimes it's really hard for people to let go of the tasks that they've been assigned. So when you delegate efficiently, you give somebody tasks to make sure that the organizational goals are met within the established timelines. You want to make sure that the tasks that you delegate are not central to your role if you are the leader, but you want to give away those things that will be more effective use of your time as the leader. And the big point here is when you delegate, you need to give the person the authority and the responsibility to act to get to the end goal. And in the link that it's an article that it's the first one on the list that Chelsea just put in the chat pod, the TMM60. There's a list that you can go through that has 10 items that will tell you yes or no whether you delegate properly or not. And I'm going to read these really quickly. I make a point of explaining clearly what needs to be done. I delegate things at the last minute. I delegate larger projects to teams of people, giving them appropriate responsibility and clearly defining their authority for decision making. I provide directions at the start of the project and wait for expected results at the agreed endpoint. If a task is directly related to my own objectives and priorities, I choose not to delegate it. I talk openly about consequences of missing deadlines and expectations. I delegate to anyone in the organization I figure could do the work. I use delegation as a means of developing other skills. I delegate work that is critical to the success of a project. I expect delegates to come to me with solutions to problems they encounter instead of simply asking for more instructions. I delegate work that is confidential and sensitive in nature as well as other work. I consider how important employee involvement and buy-in are to the projects and tasks that I delegate. So by how you answer these questions, it lets you know in this article about how well you delegate your work to others in your team and your department. So when you're making those decisions to delegate appropriately, how important or how sensitive is the task, how challenging are the tasks, will they be overwhelming, and will they develop and extend an employee's skills? So Kathy, let's talk a little bit about delegation right now.
For me, in proper delegation, it's communicating effectively and clearly. And two key principles to follow there is that you are using I messages. I need you to do this. I need it done in this order, or I need it done by this time. Um, and then in addition is that you keep your emotion out of it. Emotion is going to create other emotion in others, and they may have anxiety and or may give up because they're overwhelmed. You don't want that. So if you're feeling emotional and you're getting angry, it's time to take a break and to be able to come back and then start to problem solve. Being I call it drunk on emotion. It's no place to problem solve or to be delegating or anything. So again, it's using iMessages and managing your emotions while you're doing this, giving direction.
All right, let's do this by a show of hands. How many of you have ever worked for what we like to call in the industry a micromanager? All right, we have a few people that have responded. And yeah, what you want, like I said, you want to be able to check back with everybody and know the right way to do that without standing over their shoulder and telling them you're not doing this right. Because they're not doing it the way that you would do it doesn't mean they're not going to get to the same result that you will. So monitor progress and encourage performance by others when you choose to delegate tasks. Follow me. Follow me. The best executive is the one who has sense enough to pick good men to do what he wants done and self-restraint enough to keep from meddling with them while they do it. And that was a quote from Theodore Roosevelt. So it's exactly what I just said was pick the people that are going to do the right job and stay out of it while they're trying to do it. So do you provide a handout to help others, excuse me, the whole team succeed? Excuse me, do you demonstrate positive regard? Meaning, are you respectful of the people that you're working with and for, or that work for you? Do you provide support and sympathy when others are anxious or upset? Again, the adage of treating others the way you wish to be treated goes a long way with providing leadership. Wouldn't you agree, Catherine?
Definitely. And again here, it's keeping your emotions at bay. Listening is key, and trying to always be um, positive and a role model. You know, we're only human, um, but this you need to be a mentor.
Right, exactly. You need to be able to listen.
Definitely.
Part of being a good manager is learning how to listen. And when managers fail to listen, they forget their employees have important insights. You as an individual cannot know everything. And learning how to listen your employees may have some great ideas. Now here's something that I found that was kind of fun. What can you do if you work for a micromanager? You can help your boss delegate to you more effectively by prompting him to give, or her, to give you all the information you need up front and then set interim review points along the way. Volunteer to take on work or projects that you're confident you'll be good. And this will start to increase that micromanager's confidence in you and his delegation skills. Make sure that you're communicating with that person, with that boss regularly to discourage that boss from constantly checking in on you. And concentrate on helping your boss change one micromanagement habit at a time. Remember that that boss is only human too and is allowed to make some mistakes. Now, you also want to be able to, if you're the boss, you want to be able to counsel and encourage employees who have motivational or performance problems. It's not always get rid of the bad apples. Sometimes it's about making sure that you understand what's going on with that bad apple. Once upon a time when I worked in a retail environment before cash registers did everything for you, I had an assistant manager who kept having challenges getting the books to balance at closing time. We worked and worked and worked on this for weeks. I kept trying various methods. I went and got math books. I was working to try to teach her how to work with sales and money. And finally, at one point, this person finally told me that they had dyslexia. Now, that would have made all the difference in the world if she would have told me that up front. Just sharing that one item made a world of difference in the approach I used to try and counsel that employee. Had they not shared that important detail with me, the counseling might not have ended in such a positive way. She might have lost her job. Kathy, what do you think about that?
Well, I think you allowed the atmosphere for her to reveal that. You know, people have a lot of shame when it comes to having that, you know, a diagnosis like that, and you know they're labeled. So that's key, is to be able to allow the atmosphere of comfort so that people will open up to you.
Right.
Then you know how to direct them, and then
Exactly.
you know if you need help. If, let's say, you know, she's suffering from depression, let's say, well, I don't know about back then about EAP programs, but at least you know that, okay, I have an EAP program and I need to do a referral here. So,
Right. Very good. And when you advocate for somebody, you work on behalf of your employee or your team and their work. It work hard to increase the prominence of the employee or the team's work within the organization. Don't take credit for their work. Push that they've helped you accomplish all of that. And then help. If you're the boss and there's something and it's way overwhelming, pitch in and support your subordinates when the workload is high. Minimize the disruptions and help the employees overcome any obstacles. Work with other leaders to make sure that the workflow is flowing smoothly. Occasionally, someone may be content where they are. I don't know if any of you watched that TV program with the King of Queens, but Doug was the IBS driver, and he was very content being a driver. He applied for a management position and just didn't like it. Understanding where a person is the key to being a great leader. If you wish to try to motivate someone with lower ambition, you might try using some of the different items that we're going to talk about right now. Start by identifying what truly motivates every individual on your team. Once you know what motivates them, start using a path goal strategy to help them achieve the best results. Clarify a path so they know where they're going, remove the roadblocks so they can get there, and then increase the rewards along the route. Leadership is a process of influence where you as one person can enlist the aid and support of others in accomplishing a common task. Now let's move on to the next slide. I love this story. The old adage about there is no I in team, it applies everywhere. How many of you, we'll do a show of hands, how many of you played sports on a team? Raise your hand if you ever played sports on a team. All right, we got a couple of the guys. Oh, there's a girl. All right, great. Okay, now when you played on the team, that was the team. It wasn't just you. Not everybody has a Patrick Sharp, a Michael Jordan, or a LeBron James. And even if you are one of those guys, you need the other team members to make sure that the game goes and that you win. It's the same thing in the workplace. Even if you're a solopreneur, you work as a consultant by yourself, there are others with whom you might team up to share resources or rely upon to complete a portion of a project. If it weren't for the team of talented ladies at Illinois WorkNet, these webinars might not ever take place because it does take an army sometimes to get all of these done. So let's talk about these geese. When the geese fly together, each goose provides additional lift and reduces air resistance for the goose flying behind it. That's why they fly in a V formation. They can fly 70%, that's amazing, 70% farther with the same amount of energy than if each goose flew alone. Oh, thanks, Chelsea. So what you need to do is look at when you're seeing that a goose drops out of a V formation. Watch what happens, because as the goose drops out and back, the next goose steps up and takes the leadership role. And they rotate through. As they're rotating through, as they're getting tired, that's how the leader position takes over. They honk at each other, and I've heard them honking, trust me. They let everybody know what they're doing as they're honking and that they're working and flying together, so they're communicating to each other. And then they help each other. Scientists have discovered that when one goose becomes ill, is shot or injured, and drops out of the formation, 2 other geese fall out with them and remain with the weakened goose. They stay with and protect the injured goose from predators until it's able to fly again or it dies. So likewise, human teams work best when they do more than just work together, but care for the well-being of each other as well. Now, we've got these components that are listed on the slide, so let's talk about what's on there. Acknowledge team member and roles. You want to show loyalty to your team. You want to determine who the leader is and then the followers, and making sure that you're helping each other achieve the goals. You want to encourage each other. You want to identify upon the various team members' strengths and weaknesses to achieve results. And you want to learn from each other. You want to establish productive relationships so that as you're working with each other, you understand how to communicate with each other, that you exhibit tact and diplomacy, and that you're being sensitive to each other's opinions, that you're delivering constructive criticism, that you're not being accusatory when something does go wrong, that you are responding appropriately to negative and positive feedback. And then you want to identify with the team and its goals. You might have an individual goal as part of that team, but how will you make sure that that team effectively communicates to get the whole bigger goal achieved? And then you want to be able to resolve conflict. You want to have the give and take to be able to achieve positive results, and you want to be able to reach formal or informal agreements to promote mutual goals. Kathy, tell me a little bit more about teams.
Well, a nice habit to get into when you are working as a team is to be strength-based focused. Not everyone is going to have the same strengths, and when you embrace that, then the team can move along more quickly and at a higher level. And then again, communicating clearly is essential when you're working with teams. Back to the personality, an introvert communicates very differently than an extrovert. An extrovert relies on verbal communication, and introvert relies on written communication. An introvert in a group setting will be much more quiet. They need time to, think things over. They're not doing, it looks like they're not doing much because they're just listening, but they are extremely engaged in what's going on. They go away. They may need to have to sleep on it. They come back and then share with the team. Where an extrovert, is very, can be spontaneous and start spitting ideas out. That is not the way an introvert works. But they are each have their own skills, very highly skilled. So that empathy comes in here, and understanding of each other's differences, and really embracing the strengths of each individual member in that team.
Right. So is the team acting as a cohesive unit? And I don't know about any of the rest of you, but I watch all those dance shows, and you hear one of the judges remark, that couple has no chemistry, which can apply to a team. The old adage that one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch is representative of one team member not being cohesive with the rest of them. Let's do a poll question right now. I'm going to try and pull up the right one here. All right, so you're working at an entry-level position under a farm ranch. You're taking care of livestock. It's been a dry season. The crops aren't doing well. The supervisor pulls the team together to come up with ways to save the crops. How can your teamwork skills contribute to the team? How are they doing?
Fabulous.
All right. Looks like they're doing pretty good on these answers.
Yeah, it just reiterates that, it's not just one thing that is going to solve the problem. You've got to really pull in all different techniques and ideas
Right.
and ways of communicating.
Poll question. Let's move on to the next slide about teamwork. Oh, my picture didn't come out right. The line was underneath or on top of everybody's hand, so it will show up differently, hopefully, in the printed version. But what happens when the team is not working as a team? Most of the time, you don't have a locker room atmosphere where what is said in the locker room stays there, where you can say, meh, 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 get with it. What will work best is learning how to manage the conflict and build a better team unity. You want to gather information, find out the source of the conflicts, let everybody express their point of view, and remain impartial while you're gathering the information to make sure that you're getting all of the information. Sometimes the team is just not coming together as a unit. Performance could be suffering because of it. Performance equals the ability times the motivation. Sometimes there's not enough ability, other times there's not enough motivation. You need to make sure that the team members know what the expectations are. Maybe you need to retrain them. Is everybody's skills up to date? Maybe you need to refit. Parts of a job may need to be assigned to a different person. Maybe you need to reassign. Maybe you've given the wrong job to the wrong person. Or maybe you need to release. As a last resort, you may need to release someone so that the team may improve. But most of all, you need to encourage resolution so that you can make sure that healthy use of conflict and disagreement happens to make the best solution for the good of the team. So Kathy, tell me about Covey's habit number 5.
Dealing with personality. With this, again, if you really know what your personality is here, it will make all the difference in the world. And if the team members understand each other's personalities, we talked about the differences between extroverts and introverts. When conflict starts to happen, you will watch introverts really quiet down, shut down. What's happening is that they're in their head listening, trying to make sense of what's going on, trying to come up with solutions, where extroverts are going to be just talking, 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 talking. And that is a difference in understanding personality. The same with being someone that really just rolls with a situation versus someone that needs to stay on deadline. It's understanding that and allowing the people that need to stay on deadline to guide the group that way. And that when, conflict comes up, um, and you have the people that can roll with things and think on their feet pretty quickly, allowing them to take the lead, especially during a conflictual situation.
Yeah, great. All right, I just clicked the wrong button here. You want to make sure that you are working, that you're discouraging unproductive behavior, and that you are building a cooperative team. Team building that actually builds teams comes at the very beginning. What are the challenges the team will face? Can you help them by building exercises that will help them through those issues? Team building needs to be continuous throughout the year, not just a once-a-year meeting. So some things to remember. Leadership is a process of influence in which one person can enlist the aid and support of others in the accomplishment of a common task. Excuse me. Teamwork is work done by several associates, each doing a part to achieve a goal without allowing any one person's personal importance affecting the efficiency of the group. Goodness, positive attitude is our next slide. And we're going to talk here a little bit about attitude. A positive attitude will help you cooperate with coworkers and supervisors. It takes direction willingly and exhibits eagerness to learn. When you have self-control, it means you can suppress your own reaction and remedy difficult individuals or situations with a calm and non-defensive manner. You keep personal matters from interfering and maintain top performance. Adaptability and flexibility comes in a couple of different manners. Employing unique analysis. When you generate new and innovative ideas in complex areas, you integrate unrelated information to develop creative solutions, and you also use innovative methods to obtain and use resources when insufficient resources are available. And you also entertain new ideas, which means that you are open to new ways of doing things. So Kathy, tell me about dealing with ambiguity.
Some people deal with that better than others, and sometimes it's being creative and not being threatened by that ambiguity. Some people just find it really stressful. So, of course, looking again at strengths, you've got a team, and if there's some people on that team that are dealing well with the ambiguity in that particular situation, they need to take the lead on that.
Mm-hmm. Let's pull up a poll question here, and then we'll let you talk about this. Luma has always done a great job at work. The business she works for was growing and needed new workers. They hired Scott to help Luma with a new project. Luma trained Scott, but when he started improving, she got jealous. She started being competitive with Scott and taking on more work. She stayed up too late to meet deadlines and wasn't getting enough sleep. She started being overly critical of Scott and gossiped about things he should have done better. So now there's two different things here where the items are above what did that do to affect the team, and then below all of those X's, what should the supervisor do? Okay, so let's let's talk about this quickly.
You want me to chime in?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Um, the jealousy is an emotion, okay, and there's no place for this in in the work environment. It's toxic, so it's going to tear things down. It's going to tear the camaraderie and the energy down. So yes, it's going to create the tension between the coworkers. And yes, that supervisor needs to address it with her. It just shows her she's making her issue everybody else's issue, and that is really unhealthy. And what's happened is she has gone into her flight or fight mode, which is our innate way, a defense mechanism, and we automatically go to the negative thinking. So keeping a positive viewpoint is a lot of work. It's a lot easier for some people than others, um, but that negativity is toxic. So it needs to be nipped in the bud. And to me, in this situation, it went on way too long. It should have been caught very early. And Luma herself should have been able, we all should, when we start to feel that anxiety and those jealous feelings welling up, we've got to address it right away. Because it's not
Hmm.
healthy for us, it's not healthy for the team and
Right.
productivity.
So that brings us to our next slide about improving attitude. When you are working on all of these items on this list that are on the slide, you want to be able to improve your positive thinking. And Chelsea just put the link in the chat pod. You want to befriend people who think positively and who are optimistic. And you know that optimism or pessimism is contagious. So avoid those pessimists if at all possible. Identify negative thoughts that pop into your head and get rid of them before they take over your emotions. If somebody tries to make you feel depressed by saying that you can't succeed or you can't achieve your goals, consider those words a challenge. Take action now and avoid procrastination. When you start taking action, you'll feel much happier and you'll be eager to do whatever it takes to achieve your goals. Don't try to do more than one job at a time. Whenever you try to do more than one job at a specific time, you start feeling nervous, pressured, and you begin to think negatively. Everybody that says they're able to multitask, it doesn't work that way. You can really only concentrate on one thing at a time. Learn to always persevere, persist, and never give up. Persistence is needed if you want to achieve great and important goals. To start a new project is easy, but to persevere and to challenge every obstacle that comes your way is the hard part. Get into the habit of thinking positively until that skill becomes ingrained in you. Believe in yourself and your abilities. Be confident. Don't allow negative thinking to stop you from accomplishing your goals and desires. Listen and read everything that you can to develop your positive thinking skills, and that will help you achieve your goals. What can you add to this, Kathy?
I would add um, that, it's you've got to have some concrete reminders for you every day. And this is what I tell my clients is put visual cues up that give you the warm fuzzies that remind you that you're doing well. But you also need to be very mindful of where you're at when you start to not do well. And then you need to have your self-soothing uh, techniques. Take that bath, put that cream on after a shower, go get yourself your favorite cup of coffee. Things that you pamper yourself with. Um, so it's very important to have the reminders. I have I call it the I love me box. I had a coworker show me once that she had this like 3x5 card box, and every time she got a thank you note or some warm fuzzy from someone else, she put it in the box. And when she was having a particularly difficult day, she went to the box. It reminded her that, yes, she does do good work. She's just having a bad day today, and it will pass.
All right. Great. Um, um, author Khalil Gibran said, "Your living is determined not so much by what life brings to you as by the attitude you bring to life. Not so much by what happens to you as by the way your mind looks at what happens." So it's all about the attitude. Let's move on to our next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about supervision. With supervision, you need moderate or minimal supervision to complete tasks. You want to show effort to accept direction and constructive criticism with a positive attitude. And you want to use feedback to improve work performance. You consistently accept direction and constructive criticism with positive attitude. Use that feedback to improve your work performance and provide new and useful ideas to your employer. So be a good example. Do as I say, not as I do. How many of you heard that from your parents? Raise your hand.
Mhm.
Yeah, I heard it all the time when I was a kid, but it doesn't work with supervisors. It's not good advice to give when you're a manager. Employees will watch what you do and listen to what you say, so don't be hypocritical. Be someone worth following and appreciate your employees. Everyone loves appreciation for what they do. They want to feel like they're a valued part of the company. They want to be able to do their best. So be generally enthusiastic and generate that enthusiasm as well. You want to provide recognition for high and low visibility jobs alike, and search for contributions to recognize for people. Reward employees with good performance, and for rewarding individuals, be fair and objective, and reward that performance with that reflect a person's effort and competence. Set a good example by acting in ways that are consistent with organizational goals and objectives. Have you heard from a boss or said to your employees, "I don't ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do or haven't done myself"? Have you heard that or said that? Very similarly to that is, are they behaving the way they want you to behave? So what do you think about that, Kathy?
Well, there is, we all of us have feel appreciated in different ways is my input here. And that as a boss, you need to know what those are, those individual um, idiosyncrasies with people. And you yourself, again, need to be mindful of that and to be able to communicate with that. So if words of affirmation really work for you, then that is what your boss needs to be doing. Great job today. I really liked how you did this today. If quality time, if you feel more appreciated through quality time, then as a boss, maybe you need to sit down and just have a cup of coffee and process through something that happened in that day. Give them some of your time. Acts of service is another one. Gifts is another one. A lot of us get like rewards, stars, whatever, at work, and actually a lot of people don't feel appreciated through gifts. It's when I do this with my clients, a lot of them score very low on receiving gifts. So think that through, and as a manager, you need to add those other things, and as an employee, you need to know how do you feel appreciated, and to be able to articulate that. That's
All
my
right.
2 cents on that
All right,
slide.
let's pull up a poll right now. Jack's always been comfortable in his job, but recently he's been going through some personal and professional changes and doesn't seem to be taking it well. His wife has lost her job. That means that the family is going through some financial difficulty. There's been a management change at work, and the new managers are changing the company's mission and strategy. Faced with all of these changes, Jack has not been open to new ideas. He's not dealing with ambiguity well. Instead, he gets stressed and procrastinates. Jack can't afford to lose his job right now, but his slump is negatively affecting the team. What can Jack do, and what should his supervisors do to fix the problem? The top items are what should Jack do. The bottom items are what should the boss do. We'll give you just a minute to finish that poll because we're right on an hour. I want to get this wrapped up here for everybody. Kathy, we just talked a whole lot today.
We did. Fabulous.
Laura, are you seeing the image on the screen now? Are you seeing the poll
Yes.
question?
Yes.
Laura typed in the chat pod, though, that she couldn't see the slide.
You know, little people are talking about the call in sick for mental health days. A lot of people just won't do that. They will rough through it. Sometimes you need to and sometimes you don't. But, of course, being a mental health advocate, I say you need to call in for a day. Get yourself rested and so that you can have a little bit of clarity. You definitely need to separate home from work life, and the trick is to stay in the present moment. That really helps reduce anxiety. When you're at work, you're at work. When you're at home, you're at home. And that commute in between is the time to decompress. So really being aware of and mindful that you are staying in the moment. Dumping a negative attitude when you're in that state of mind is very difficult. So again, if you have visual cues, you have your self-soothing habits lined up, you should be able to control it a bit. But sometimes when you are in a bit of a crisis mode, that's not going to work. But knowing that this too shall pass is also a very good way of approaching it, and that today is better than yesterday. It's that better than mentality to help you get through that. And as far as the supervisor, you got to know when it's time to refer to EAP. You need to be possibly spending a little bit more time with them and affirming them in the way that they feel affirmed. So those would be some suggestions that I would say here.
Good. Let's talk about our last couple of slides. A couple of the things that you need to do to be able to motivate your employees is understand that leadership is a privilege. Too many bad bosses look on employee problems as unwelcome intrusions on their time. Why can't the employee fix their own problem? Well, it doesn't always work that way. You want to be able to recognize that your reports are human, meaning your employees are human too. They are driven by fundamental human urges. They want to be happy and free from suffering. And if you can help those employees work better and learn and have growth, that's even all the better, and it will improve the time that you spend. You want to be authentic. Don't use techniques. Countless methods espouse giving employees a pat on the back to make them feel good or encourage them to work harder, perhaps. But if it's not genuine, that praise will fall to deaf ears. And you want to work on yourself first and constantly. You can't teach someone to play better chess unless you are a great chess player yourself. Meaning you can't be a better customer service person if you aren't you can't teach somebody to be a better customer service person if you aren't good at it yourself. So try to inspire others by being better at what you do. Consciously try on every occasion and every interaction to raise the level of your employees' consciousness, both individually and collectively. Hold them up to what they're capable of doing and encourage them to do it. Kathy, do you have any comments on these?
Well, this comes right back to the empathy factor. If you are the personality that you are more sensitive and that we have these type of personalities and we need these type of personalities, but if you're leading, if you're a manager of humans and you need to hone up that particular um, caveat about yourself and admit, okay, I don't have much empathy. I need to work on my listening skills, and I need to be more complimentary. Something, but just focus on that. And then realize, too, you as the manager have to care for yourself as well. Just like caring for the caregiver, it's caring for the leader. You've got to keep your mind clear. So you've got to put things into place that help you do that, whether it's meditation and exercise and coffee in the mid of the afternoon, whatever works for you. But making sure that you are mindful of that and you're employing things that you expect your employees to employ, like the visual cues and everything else that I talked about.
Right. So our last few points here are make sure your employees can see firsthand the value of what they are doing and the impact it has. The CEO of a hotel chain makes it a practice to invite guests who send in strong testimonials excuse me, to visit again at their expense and meet the housekeeping staff. Wow. The manufacturer of a medical equipment company records grateful statements from patients whose lives have been saved by their devices and shares these video presentations at internal company meetings. Use that creativity to show your value, to show the employees their value to your company. Ask. I bet you've never done this. Ask each employee who reports to you what is the one thing you could do to make their life easier. And if at all possible, do it. If not, explain why you can't and ask for something else. Do it with sincerity and see what happens if you can actually do that. And repeat that every 6 months. Promote creativity. Procedures are in place for the bureaucracy, but they can also stultify creative impulses. Examine policies that have become entrenched and ask what would happen if you abolished them. Encourage participation. Few things energize an employee more than by inviting them to participate. Create a sense that they genuinely have a say in the conditions at a workplace and encourage that to go. So, Kathy, what would you like to say about those points?
Well, number 9 in encouragement, that simple, I'm going back to the introvert versus extrovert, that simple knowledge of being able to pick up quickly on if someone's an introvert or an extrovert is key in encouraging them. If you have, you're at a meeting, you've got someone that is very quiet, they are engaged, and you could pull them into the conversation, but doing it gently, knowing that they're not going to contribute much. So, John, you've been really quiet, but I can see your wheels are turning. Do you have anything to share right now? Knowing that he may not share right now, but he may share at the next meeting because he needs to think about it. So, and it's just embracing that, and then allowing those extroverts to really express themselves but not take over a meeting, that they can tend to do that.
Yeah. I pulled up the last poll question while Catherine was talking. Which one of these recognition rewards would you appreciate? Catherine, you said something just a couple of seconds ago about something didn't really resonate with the employees that you worked with. And it was about the pat on the back, or it was one of those items.
Oh, right. Okay. So we're talking about affirmation style here. So each one of us has our particular style. So this, the top one, which is getting the most score. Get called into the office just to be thanked for your efforts. Cool. That is a verbal affirmation, words of affirmation. A lot of people are high scorers there. And at work, we kind of expect that more than any of the other ones. Thank you note posted on your office door or locker. Very cool. And that is an affirmation. It's words of affirmation, but it's more of an act of service because it's concrete, something that someone can hold on to, or a gift. We could even look at it as a gift. So let's see. Not many have your phone answered for the day.
Maybe they don't have phones.
Okay. Or that's just not something that is looked upon as an affirmation, an appreciation, showing
Right.
of appreciation. Name on Employee of the Month plaque, that's more of a gift. Photo in the monthly newsletter, Employee of the Month parking spot. So those are, you have to know how you feel rewarded and appreciated, and you have to know how your employees act or take that in as well, and that helps. And I think at work, they're not very diversified in addressing each individual style of appreciation. I think we all need to get better at that.
Yeah. Laura typed in the chat pod, thanks a million email. Was nice to get.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a book here, 1,001 Ways to Reward Employees, and most of those reward the employee items are all no to low cost. So there's just gobs of ways that you can reward somebody and have it be effective. So as a reminder, leadership is a process of influence in which one person can enlist the aid and support of others in the accomplishment of a common task. Teamwork is work done by several associates, each doing a part to achieve a goal without allowing any one person's personal importance to affect the efficiency of the group. So thanks for joining us today. You can find us on all of our social media or at illinoisworknet.com. Let's take just a moment for you to answer these closing polls for me for a moment for those of you who are still with us. Remember to download the handouts, and we will put out a press item on Illinois WorkNet with the links to all of these items and to with the recording for this webinar. I would love to thank Dr. Catherine Perfetti of EPPA Group, for joining us on today's webinar. I appreciate the time that she took to help answer some of the comments, and
well, thank you,
that
Dee.
she can help any of you.
Yes, this has been a great experience for me. It's opened up some possibilities in for what I do, and I wish everyone good luck in and I hope that they can find what they're looking for, and to do that. Go to 16personalities.com and do the Myers-Briggs test so you know exactly where you're at. It's very helpful with your personality.
Do you want to type that website into the chat pod?
Sure.
And then everybody can get at it. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. If you have any other questions or comments, please type them into the chat pod. We'll be on the webinar for another moment or two. I am going to end the recording as soon as Catherine can put that website address into the chat pod for everybody so that those that are watching the recording can access that.
I put it in the number 16personalities.com. Very helpful
Right,
in a lot of different areas.
Now hit enter.
I did. It is under Lori Graham, above S. Lackey at...
There it is. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Chelsea just put it in so that it was alive.
Oh, great.
Somehow the live links aren't working in the chat pod properly.
This was great, Dee. Thanks so much.